There are people in this world who move through life like chess players, always calculating, always positioning, always thinking 3 moves ahead. They are charming when they need to be, cold when it serves them, and they leave a trail of confused, hurt, and sometimes destroyed people in their wake. Psychology has a name for the combination of traits that makes someone like this. It is called the Dark Triad, and understanding it might be one of the most important things you ever do for your own safety and well-being. The Dark Triad is a concept developed by psychologists Delroy Paulhus and Kevin Williams in 2002. It describes 3 distinct but overlapping personality traits: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. Each of these traits is dangerous on its own. Together, they create a personality profile that is uniquely skilled at manipulation, exploitation, and causing harm, often without any visible remorse. What makes the Dark Triad so difficult to deal with is that people who score high on these traits are often extremely attractive at first. They tend to be confident, charismatic, and socially skilled. They know how to make you feel special. They know how to read a room, and they know how to use that knowledge to get exactly what they want from you. Let's break down each trait individually, because understanding them separately is the first step to recognizing them together. Narcissism, in the clinical sense, goes far beyond simply being vain or self-centered. A person high in narcissism has an inflated and fragile sense of their own importance. They believe they are special, unique, and entitled to special treatment. They crave admiration the way other people crave food. It is a genuine psychological need, not just a preference. And when that admiration is withheld, or when their self-image is threatened, they can become cold, cruel, and vindictive. The key thing to understand about narcissism is the fragility beneath the surface. The grandiosity is a defense mechanism. Underneath the confidence and the entitlement is a deep fear of being ordinary, of being exposed, of being found out. This is why narcissists react so disproportionately to perceived slights. A small criticism that a healthy person would brush off can trigger a narcissist into a full campaign of retaliation. Not because the criticism was devastating, but because it touched the wound they spend their entire life trying to protect. In relationships, narcissists follow a predictable pattern. They idealize you at first. You are perfect, you are special, you are the only person who truly understands them. This feels incredible. And then gradually, the devaluation begins. The small criticisms, the comparisons, the coldness that appears without explanation. You find yourself working harder and harder to get back to the person who once made you feel so seen. But that person was a performance, not a reality. Machiavellianism is named after Niccolò Machiavelli, the Renaissance political philosopher who wrote that it is better for a ruler to be feared than loved, and that the ends always justify the means. People high in Machiavellianism share this worldview. They are strategic, calculating, and completely comfortable using deception and manipulation to achieve their goals. They do not necessarily lack empathy the way psychopaths do. They simply choose not to use it when it gets in the way of what they want. What makes Machiavellian people particularly dangerous is their patience. They are willing to invest significant time and energy into building a relationship or a reputation, knowing they will eventually leverage it for personal gain. They are skilled at identifying what people want and presenting themselves as the person who can provide it. They are excellent at reading social dynamics and positioning themselves advantageously within groups, and they are very good at covering their tracks. If you have ever felt like someone was being kind to you for reasons you couldn't quite identify, or like a friendship had an agenda you couldn't name. You may have encountered someone high in Machiavellianism. The feeling is subtle but persistent, a sense that the warmth you are receiving is conditional, that it could be withdrawn at any moment if you stopped being useful. Psychopathy is perhaps the most misunderstood of the three traits, largely because of how it is portrayed in popular culture. Not all psychopaths are violent criminals. In fact, research suggests that a significant number of people with psychopathic traits are highly functional. They hold jobs, maintain relationships, and move through society without ever committing a crime. What defines psychopathy is not violence, but a fundamental deficit in emotional processing. Psychopaths experience significantly reduced fear, anxiety, and most critically, empathy. This absence of empathy is not the same as not knowing that other people have feelings. Psychopaths often have excellent cognitive understanding of emotions. They can read your face, predict your reactions, and model your emotional state with precision. What they lack is the felt experience of those emotions. They understand that you are in pain the way you might understand that a character in a book is in pain, intellectually, but without any visceral response. This makes them extraordinarily skilled manipulators. They can simulate empathy convincingly. They can say exactly the right thing at exactly the right moment. And they can do all of this without the emotional cost that would slow down a normal person. While you are feeling guilty, conflicted, and exhausted by the manipulation, they are calm, clear, and already planning the next move. Now here is where it gets truly dangerous. When these three traits combine in a single person, the result is someone who has the grandiosity and need for admiration of the narcissist, the strategic patience and deceptive skill of the Machiavellian, and the emotional coldness and fearlessness of the psychopath. They are charming enough to get close to you, strategic enough to position themselves advantageously, and cold enough to use you without hesitation when the moment comes. Research has shown that people high in Dark Triad traits are overrepresented in certain environments, particularly those that reward competition, status, and the ability to influence others. They tend to rise quickly in hierarchies. They are often perceived as leaders, and they are very good at making themselves look good while making others look bad. So how do you recognize a Dark Triad person before they cause damage? There are several early warning signs that, taken together, should raise your alert level significantly. The first is a pattern of charm that feels too intense, too fast. Dark Triad individuals often engage in what is called love bombing, an overwhelming flood of attention, compliments, and connection in the early stages of a relationship. This feels wonderful. It is designed to. The speed and intensity of the connection is a feature, not a coincidence. It is meant to bypass your normal defenses and create a sense of attachment before you have had time to evaluate the person clearly. The second warning sign is a consistent pattern of blaming others. Dark Triad individuals rarely take genuine responsibility for negative outcomes. There is always an explanation that positions them as the victim or the hero, never the cause. If you notice that someone has a long history of relationships and situations that went wrong, and in every single story, the other person was at fault, pay attention to that pattern. The third warning sign is a lack of consistency between public and private behavior. Dark Triad individuals are often very skilled at managing their public image. They may be charming, generous, and well-liked in social settings, while being cold, critical, or cruel in private. If you notice a significant gap between how someone presents themselves to the world and how they treat the people closest to them, that gap is telling you something important. The fourth warning sign is a discomfort with your independence. Dark Triad individuals need control. They may express this as concern. They worry about you. They want to protect you. They think your friends are a bad influence. But the underlying dynamic is always about limiting your access to perspectives and support systems that might help you see them clearly. What can you do to protect yourself? The most powerful tool you have is your own observation. Trust the patterns you see over time more than the explanations you are given in the moment. A person's behavior across multiple situations and relationships tells you far more about who they are than anything they say about themselves. Maintain your connections with people outside the relationship. Dark Triad individuals often try to isolate their targets because isolation makes manipulation easier. The more people you have in your life who knew you before this person arrived, the harder it is for anyone to rewrite your sense of reality. And finally, trust the feeling of confusion. Healthy relationships, even difficult ones, generally make sense. You may disagree, you may hurt each other, you may have conflict, but the basic narrative of what is happening is usually clear to both people. If you find yourself constantly confused about what is real, constantly second-guessing your own perceptions, constantly trying to figure out what just happened, that confusion is information. It is telling you that something in the dynamic is not right. The Dark Triad is not a monster under the bed. It is a set of human traits that exist on a spectrum, in real people, in real relationships, in real workplaces. Understanding it does not mean living in fear or suspicion. It means living with clarity, the kind of clarity that lets you recognize what is real, protect what matters, and choose the people in your life with wisdom rather than just hope. Subscribe to MindVault 305 for more content on psychology, human behavior, and the science behind the stories that shape our lives.